Welcome back to the Gen Z Speaks podcast. With me today, my co-host, Matt Gutierrez. How you doing, man?
Doing great, brother. Doing great. Just had a baby sister, so it's pretty exciting.
What was that like? How you feeling?
Dude, it's honestly this whole COVID stuff made it so weird, man. The hospital is just like they don't let the mom stay inside the hospital. They'll make her go home until like she's dilating further, and like it's crazy because she's in pain and she's at home dealing with it rather than being in like a hospital bed with like professionals. So it's pretty brutal.
Wait, why do they send them home? Why?
Well, the hospital Long Beach Memorial, they didn't have enough beds at the time, and so they were trying to
Oh,
prioritize differently. But it just didn't make sense because if you saw her, she was just like, dude,
yeah.
it was bad. But
Wow.
yeah, everybody's healthy, so everybody's fine now.
Yeah, but the baby was healthy. Everything is
Yeah,
good. Okay, it's awesome, man. Congrats.
thank you.
And Jenish, thank you. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. School started up. Back on campus, feeling nice.
What
Doing
was that?
nice.
So, I mean, you haven't been back on campus in 2 years, right? Like
Yeah, pretty
in-person class.
much. Pretty
So, what
much.
was when you stepped in? Did it feel a little weird? Like, what is this?
Yeah, the first day of class, it felt kind of weird. Like I was like, damn, like everybody like walking into class. But then eventually, it got to a point where like, I mean, online's pretty good. It's very convenient. Kind of started missing online a little bit.
Man, I can never go back to online. It's such a scam being online. But
A
um
scam.
yeah, it is a scam because it's not supposed to, the whole college thing is supposed to be an in-person experience, like I would have just went to University of Phoenix and gotten the online degree if I wanted,
Fair.
but it's whatever. It is what it is. Let's actually dive right in. Today we're going to be talking about the developments in the Ukraine-Russia crisis. We're also going to be giving our thoughts on the Joe Rogan controversies and also talking about the recent developments in the NFT slash metaverse space. Let's first start off with the Ukraine and Russia crisis that's been happening. Before we talk about it, I just want to give some background information that's helpful for us and for the viewers and listeners who are watching this or listening to it. Number one, the whole controversy actually started back in 1991 when Ukraine was no longer part of the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union essentially collapsed. And since 1991, there's been tensions between Ukraine and Russia, and honestly, with all the formerly Soviet Union states. And so most recently, this month and last month, Russia started to put a lot more troops along the Ukrainian border. I believe, according to latest intelligence estimates, that amount has spiked to 130,000 troops. So Russia has 130,000 troops along the Ukrainian border currently, and it basically is around the entire border. There's Russian troops at almost like every single major location. And part of the reason why Vladimir Putin has done this is because he opposes Ukraine to join NATO. And NATO is one of the most important European slash American security alliances. It was formed in 1949 after World War II. And the goal of the organization, which consists of 27 European countries and 2 North American countries, is to obviously, support each other in times of war, but it's also to prevent war and to have a consistent and united security slash foreign policy on specific issues. And so Vladimir Putin does not want Ukraine to join NATO, and he has asked NATO to give that to him in writing, that they will not allow Ukraine to join NATO. And that's partly because Vladimir Putin he fears the Western influence on Europe, particularly Eastern Europe. NATO, there's 5 current member states of NATO border Russia. And sometimes they have joint military exercises in those areas. And so Vladimir Putin essentially is scared that NATO's influence on Europe is rising. And, President Biden and the United Kingdom have warned that Putin's about to invade Ukraine, that it's going to happen any day now. and that if Putin does do this, the United States are going to impose a lot of sanctions that will basically destroy Russia economically. But there's a lot of like nuance involved in that. There's a lot of detail that we'll cover in the podcast. But from a basic background perspective, those are the facts on the ground right now. And most recently, yesterday, the National Security Advisor to President Biden, Jake Sullivan, basically told every single American in Ukraine to leave the country. And a lot of other countries have followed suit. Some European states have also released statements saying, leave Ukraine because Russia is about to invade it. So those are the facts on the ground. What is your guys' first initial perspective? I know, Jenish, we were talking about this briefly on Thursday, but what is your sense of what's going on with the crisis so far?
Well, my first reaction was, why is this happening right now? Like, why didn't this happen, a couple years ago? Or
Right.
was there like a certain point in this whole ordeal which led to this, right? And you kind of brought it up. This started back in 1991. This whole kind of trying to mess with Ukraine and possibly invade it. And I find it fascinating why Russia wants to, invade Ukraine to begin with. I know we talked about a little bit how Putin wants to stop the Western influence on the eastern side of Europe. He wants to, further, gain power for Russia, because that they're not that superpower that they were back in the Cold War era. So they will kind of want that name back for themselves. And we know Putin's a selfish guy, and he wants to further his legacy of being someone who brought more power to Russia and made Russia a superpower in the world. So I think those are some reasons why Russia is trying to get at Ukraine and take over. Do you think there's some more like subtle reasons why they want Ukraine other than those like primary reasons?
Well, I was reading a Vox article, and they quoted a statement by let me find it. So the Vox article that I read, they quoted a statement by a research director in the Russian studies program at CNA, which is a research and analysis organization. But this guy, Michael Kaufman, said that Russia wants to relitigate the security architecture in Europe. So the whole statement goes, a Russian attempt not only to secure interest in Ukraine, but essentially relitigate the security architecture in Europe. And so you're right. Ukraine is a part of that relitigation of the security architecture. And so Putin, this is more than just about Ukraine. Russia, like you said, Jenish, I think you brought up a good point. Putin kind of looks at the Cold War era, where Russia was a superpower, as almost nostalgic. He wants Russia to be a force of power, and this is one of the things that he thinks will, one, stop or kind of combat against, like you said, the Western influence on Eastern Europe, and also kind of reintroduce Russia into foreign policy headlines and like power debates. But also it is important to note, though, like in 2008, I believe it was, that Vladimir Putin was basically asking, United States and its Western allies to not allow Ukraine to join NATO. So he's been, asking Americans and people in the West and NATO to not let Ukraine join NATO. So this is not just like that. This happened last year. This has been Russia's stance for a long time. And I think Russia presented the US with a list of demands. And one of the demands was that NATO stop its eastward expansion, obviously, in terms of giving membership to Ukraine. And they also said, Putin also said that he doesn't want NATO to deploy any troops to countries that joined NATO after 1997. And so a lot of these things are like non-starters, right? I was reading this Vox article, and like they did a really good job of giving a lot of the background information. But one of the things they were saying is that all the Russian demands to the US and West have been kind of non-starters, right? Like, I don't think NATO is going to stop troop deployment to countries that joined after 1997. But also, like, the thing that's kind of like weird to me is that people in America who are questioning why, um, why the United States has been so alarmist about the whole situation. Because remember, Dinesh, we're talking about this, that Ukraine has not been as alarmist about the war as the United States, as the country itself, which is going to be invaded. It's a little weird because they obviously don't want to scare away their residents. They don't want to create like chaos, or they don't want to basically scare people into like I said, into going into chaos. But yeah, so the US has been alarming, and the US and the UK have been alarming the rest of the world that this is going to happen. Russia is going to invade Ukraine. But everybody else, even Germany and France, have not been as alarmist as the US. And that's also because one of the most important, interesting things of the story is that Germany and Russia are really, really, really close economically. And that's because Russia sells oil and gas to Germany. Part of the I think the number one source of revenue for Russia is oil and gas. And Germany gets the majority of its oil and gas from Russia. And so if you want to really economically destroy Russia, Germany would have to take the step of stop buying oil and gas from Russia. And if that happens, it's going to be bad, because a lot of Germans rely on Russian oil and gas. And one of the things, let's go ahead.
Go ahead. Just finish up.
Yeah, I was just going to say really quick. So the German chancellor, the new German chancellor, which is just a fancy word for saying German president, he came over to Washington, D.C. and met with Biden, and Biden and him contradicted on a really important point. So there's a pipeline named Nord Stream 2, which basically provides Germany Nord Stream. There's two pipelines, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 2 is still under development. And that was because Germany wants to buy more oil and gas from Russia. And so Biden was saying that if Russia invades Ukraine, that Germany is going to stop developing this pipeline that they've already spent billions on. And the German chancellor was like, I don't know about that. Like we'll consider all options, but I don't know if we're going to stop, if we're going to abandon or just stop the development of this pipeline. And so that's important to consider as well, that Germany and Russia have a really, really close economic alliance. And if you really want to destroy Russia, Germany can basically do so. But then how are they going to get their oil and gas? So that's the important question.
So I was watching a few press conferences, and then I read a couple articles on this. And I think the interesting thing is, obviously Biden is, providing his 2 cents on putting sanctions on Russia and all. And then I saw kind of how Putin rebutted to that, right? And he was basically like kind of threatening us, right? Without actually threatening us, saying, it wouldn't be a good idea for the US and the West to go ahead and do that because, we have nuclear weapons as well as they do. And I mean, he's talking about, this nuclear weaponizing and, sending them out. But the thing is, he goes ahead and says, nobody wants that though, right? Because if I send it out, then they'll send it out, and nobody wants that. And so I think it's just like, it's a mental power tactic that he's trying to play. Something else that I thought was interesting is that like Ukraine, right? Obviously there's like 13 countries under the Iron Curtain, and Ukraine's obviously the largest one in there. So that's what I was curious about, right? Why Ukraine? And then I realized like maybe they're the largest one, and obviously they are, but I think it goes further than that, right? That, I mean, as you guys were saying about how Russia's trying to regain some power, regain some Russian authority in the world and all of that. It's kind of like whose chest can puff out bigger, right? Us or the US's. And I just think I don't understand why. Like, why does he want to have more power like that on this basis? Do you know why?
Yeah. Well, from looking at it from Russia's perspective, he fears the right. I mean, he's always feared the United States, and he doesn't want the United States and West to have all the power in Eastern Europe. He doesn't want the US to dictate what happens. And this is his way of saying that, stop, like I'm here to that you're not just going to bully your way into making all the decisions for Eastern Europe, that this was formerly a part of Russia, and that, he says that he's relitigating history. But I mean,
I think also he just really fears that Russia's just becoming weaker and weaker as the time goes, and eventually, they won't be like relevant in the world stage and can't really, yeah, like Ibrahim saying, they'll just be bullied out of all the decisions, like foreign decisions that are being made, especially in the eastern side of Europe.
Why not assist? I mean, obviously Russia's not bad, but they're not also not in a great state, right? Why not just focus on your own country thriving and, having a better output? That's the weird thing
Yeah.
to me. Like, what is it?
That's a good point. That's a good point. For Putin, one of the things that's really close to his heart is how he's viewed internationally and how other nations view Russia. And obviously, like foreign policy is a big part of politics. But like I said, this is something that Putin has been looking at since he came to power. I think it's been one of his dreams, I guess, to return Russia back to its Cold War glory or whatever that glory means, and to have Ukraine be a part of Russia. But you're right. Russia is struggling economically. It's not a great country to live in. It really is not. And you're right. Maybe Putin should just focus on internal affairs. But I think he views an opening. Currently to do something in Ukraine. Again, like we don't know still if Russia is going to invade Ukraine. I mean, obviously, intelligence in the U.S. has said so. But I mean, obviously, they do have a point. 130,000 troops. What are they doing there?
That doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just saying, yeah, today, like I was reading reports like in the morning today, they're telling embassy workers, U.S. embassy workers to leave the Ukraine. And so obviously you're not just telling them to leave if there's no, sign that they're going to possibly invade, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, I only said that because some people were, some experts were saying, foreign policy experts were saying that this could also be Russia just postulating and that they're just trying to, have people talk about Russia and kind of not
marketing,
not marketing, but like, it was just a kind of power move thing. Like Putin wasn't really serious about doing it, but it looks like he is serious.
Okay, taking this as face value, right? Like, let's just say, for example, Russia will invade Ukraine, right? Like that's going to happen. So, Russia's puffing out their chest. They take Ukraine. Why wouldn't they stop? Like, why wouldn't they stop the Iron Curtain and like keep going, try to take maybe, Romania or Lithuania or somebody, and then, continue it?
You're saying that if they invade Ukraine, what's going to stop them from invading other
continuing,
countries?
Right.
Well, because
I was reading, let me capitalize on this real quick. So I was reading an article and it was saying essentially that I think it was by CNBC News or something. Regardless, it was saying that basically by Russia taking Ukraine, it's telling, the US and everybody else, you guys can't really affect me. Like you can't touch me. And by going ahead and like, solving that, taking Ukraine, they're saying, and nobody touches them. That's what it is, right? Nobody can really touch them at this point. And they go ahead and take smaller countries and, eventually take whatever it was. What's stopping them from then? If we don't,
NATO. I mean, Romania. So a lot of these countries on the eastern side, I told you five of the European countries in Eastern Europe border Russia, and they're all part of NATO. I believe they include I know Romania, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, and I don't know if Finland is part of NATO, but a lot of the countries are part of NATO. And one of NATO's rules is that if one country is attacked, it's like an attack on all countries. And so Putin would never do that. But so I don't think Putin's going to attack countries beyond Ukraine, so to speak, because I think Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, who do border Russia, are all part of NATO. So I don't think that's gonna happen. But you're right. I mean, that's his way. That's a lot of people were saying that, because that is one way of him indicating that, just because I'm not just all words and I'm action too. But so far, Putin has it's been all words so far. And like, I don't think Putin is as sophisticated as people give him credit for. He's not. He thinks he's this genius, and he really isn't. He runs a country that's weak economically. Its people suffer. He's a criminal. He's a thug. And I mean, he thinks he's doing his country a favor, but I don't think he's, like you said, Matt, I don't think he's doing his country a favor by doing what he's doing.
Don't ever go to Russia after saying that, bro.
I have no intentions or plans of going to Russia.
Okay,
I don't think I'm missing out on anything. But one other thing I wanted to say was regarding this crisis was that an easy, simple fix to this is that if the US and NATO just say that Ukraine is not going to join NATO, like that's all they have to say. And both of them know it's like an open secret that Ukraine isn't going to join NATO anytime soon. So I really don't understand why the US can't just say that. I mean, I understand because of, the way these things go and the formal
Wait,
procedures, and they don't want to they don't want to just let Russia strong arm them. But I think this whole thing can just go away if Russia and NATO provide Russia the assurance in writing that Ukraine is not going to join NATO, and they don't want to do that. So it just doesn't make sense to me. This whole thing can just go away by doing that.
If they say Ukraine's not going to join NATO, isn't it just further motivate Russia to invade Ukraine? Or no? Am I thinking about it?
They're trying to keep them from it though, right? So Russia's trying to keep them from joining NATO. So
yeah, no, I'm
there's
saying
insurance on it.
no, I'm saying. So what Ibrahim was saying is if NATO just says we're not going to let Ukraine in any time, then this will be solved. But wouldn't it just motivate Russia further to invade Ukraine because they're not ever going to be a part of NATO? So like no one's going to help them.
That was one of the.
Well, there's already a lot of Russian influence already on Ukraine, right? Eastern countries.
By the way, Russia invaded Crimea, which is a peninsula in Ukraine in 2014. They literally invaded it in 2014. And like you said, Russia has been supporting a lot of rebels in Ukraine to fight back against like areas within Ukraine. So yeah, you're right. They've already been funding Ukrainian activities within Ukraine for a long time. So, but you're right though. It is interesting, but I think that was because that was one of the demands of Putin. I think internationally he would look like a liar, which he already has multiple times, and a fool if he proceeds to invade Ukraine, even though the US and the West give him what he wanted. But I think the US and the West don't want to be strong-armed by Russia. Like they don't want to fold to him in any scenario, in any case. Yeah. But again, like this whole sanction thing isn't going to do anything because Germany is not going to surrender its oil and gas supply from Russia. Like they are dependent on Russia for their oil and gas, and they have a really close economic relationship. And I don't think Germans are ready to give that up, in the next coming weeks, especially because of winter, oil and gas, like the heating system in Germany would completely go away. Like they would not have any heat during wintertime. Also, one thing, China is such an important part of the situation too, because Putin and President Xi, the president of China, recently met, and they released a really big like statement / official support letter, which basically said that Russia supports China's classification of Taiwan as not being an independent country, and China said that it supports Ukraine not becoming a part of NATO. Does that make sense? So China and Russia are becoming,
they're like a clique.
Yeah, they're becoming more closer together, and they're trying to just stand up to the US and the West and saying, hey, like we can work together when we need to. And so that was really interesting to me. At the heels of like the Winter Olympics, Putin and President Xi met, and they talked about how they're going to stand up to the West. So it's interesting. You know
what's another solution, bro? If we just allowed Ukraine to just wave the white flag and let Russia just take over, I mean, everything will be okay.
By the way, an intelligence report recently said that 50,000 people are going to die in the first few weeks if this happens. Think about that, man. Bad. It's going to create. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, I think people think like, oh, Russia's going to invade Ukraine. But I don't think they understand like how powerful even the Ukrainian army might be, right? Like they're not just, letting them rush in, like come in, like they're all around the borders as well. And there's going to be a big clash that's just waiting to happen, right?
The defense minister said that they are preparing in terms of like doing military drills. So yeah, Ukraine is definitely going to stand up, but again, it will be a war.
But do you think there's any? But do you think there's any potential like?
No,
Russia
will invade Ukraine.
No, Russia will destroy them. I'm just saying though, there's going to be a lot of deaths.
I
don't want U.S. soldiers to go to Ukraine though.
Oh no, that's not
going to happen. That's not happening. That's a non-starter. But they are placing American troops in Eastern European countries just to say like this is NATO. These are NATO allies, and you can't. We're here too. So But yeah, one of the things that's really a little bit that I'm scared about is a senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley. I'm not a big fan of this guy, but one of the things that he was saying was what I was saying was that the United States and the West can basically say that Ukraine is not going to join NATO, and they can make a lot of this go away. And Jen Psaki, who's the White House press secretary, said that he was repeating Russian talking points. You know, the mere fact that he was disagreeing with the Biden approach meant that he was some sort of a Russian spy, or like, not, he wasn't saying he was a spy, but she was saying that he was repeating what Putin wanted the rest of the world to like know or say. And Bernie Sanders said something similar as well, that he was actually supporting Josh Hawley's statement that the West and the US can make this whole thing go away by just saying that Ukraine is not going to join NATO, because Ukraine isn't going to join NATO sometime soon. I don't think it's going to happen. So, but yeah, that's interesting that Jen Psaki, the mere fact that Josh Hawley disagreed with the Biden approach, he was labeled as parroting Russian talking points. I don't think that's exactly how the Iraq war started. Anybody who questioned the Iraq war was somehow like labeled as like, oh, you support terrorists, like you don't support American operations in Iraq. And so it's a really narrow like path.
So by saying, say it were to happen, right? The West says Ukraine's not going to. Doesn't that kind of put Ukraine in a little pocket? Like they're kind of stuck now, right? Because what if they have like the want for it?
I don't.
They're in a crappy position either way.
They are in a crappy position. I mean, Ukraine.
But the other way, it just makes Vladimir Putin look like a liar and a fool, like Ibrahim said. Like he said all these demands, and then people met him. I guess it doesn't even make him like a fool, because that's what Hitler did too. He said he made all these demands, and then he just took over him anyway. Took over the countries anyway. I mean, I don't know.
But Hitler did make their economy pretty decent, so.
Yeah, but
for the time being, I mean, for the time, I'm not supporting Hitler. I'm just saying.
Okay. No, I get you. Yeah. But I'm saying, but it's a complicated. There's so many factors that are going into all of this that's happening, like all the different countries that are siding with the different allies. I think it's very interesting, and I think we're gonna see what's gonna happen. Do you think it's gonna? What do you guys think about the timeline? Is it gonna be in a couple of weeks or months, or do you guys just?
I think when
elongated.
It depends, but I think it's gonna happen when the Winter Olympics in China, which no one's watching. I'm not gonna watch the Winter Olympics in China. Who cares, right? I mean, but
what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care.
Why?
For the Winter Olympics. One, because dude, literally, China's having a genocide of 1 million Uyghur Muslims, bro, and no one's saying
fair,
anything about it. You're right. I mean, yeah, it's unfair to say the Winter Olympics don't matter. But again, like, I hate the fact that it's happening in China, a country who's literally persecuting millions of people. This is like 1939 Germany, bro. How they were killing a whole population of people in the world, was not doing much about it. I think it's the same situation, very similar. Obviously, not to the degree that it was in Germany, but
U.S. Olympians kind of need support. It's
for sure. For sure. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. I was exaggerating. Obviously, I want the Americans to win. I want America's, but I hope I haven't been keeping up at all. Have you been keeping up? Have you been watching the Winter Olympics?
Here and there.
Really? What do you watch? Like what sport?
Well, I'll read articles on it, but like I'm into like snowboarding and like the skiing and what's it called? Ice skating.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So in terms of the timeline question, I think it's probably going to happen when the Winter Olympics end, because Putin and China are now they're not officially in an alliance, but they're closely partnered. And so I don't think Putin wants to like upstage the whole invasion when the Olympics are happening in China, because it is supposed to be like a patriotic thing for China to be hosting the Olympics. So I think he's going to wait for the Olympics to end. But again, I don't know. It can literally happen as we speak, or tomorrow, or the day after, but it's definitely going to happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think, or 4 weeks. Something will probably happen, but yeah. Or Putin can just drag this along. Like he can just drag this. And also he's wasting so much of his money having those troops at the border. Like that costs money. It is expensive what he's doing.
He doesn't care though.
He doesn't care. It doesn't. I mean, care. I think he does care, but I think he's rationalizing it by saying that he's bringing back Russian glory, and that he's standing up to the West, and that he's being bold, and that he's looking out for the Russian name or its history and
He may be rationalizing it that way, but it's not reality, right?
yeah,
Like the reality is
100%.
he just, I mean, look at the way he treats his own people. He just doesn't care. He has his own agenda, and like that's just what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My
I
last
don't,
comment. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say real quick, I don't really know a lot about Ukraine. I haven't read into a lot of like what what Ukraine is like and how the people are. But I wonder if obviously Ibrahim mentioned there's rebel groups in Ukraine, and there's like Russia's kind of infiltrated Ukrainian websites and social medias. But
Cyber thing, right?
yeah, but I'm wondering like how easily will Ukraine fold? Like, do they really want their own place, or do they kind of not want? No one wants for Russia to invade, but do they like not care as much as like
No, they definitely care.
they
I
care,
mean,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
they 100%. Yeah, they're like a sovereign nation. They're an independent country who runs under the market economy. So I think they
No,
definitely care.
I
Obviously,
get that, but like in some scenarios where the
you're
people are
saying,
not happy with the government, right? They're not happy in some cases. Like
so they
there's a lot
might as
of
well just have
corruption.
Russia. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Exactly, right. Yeah. So I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I need to read more about Ukraine. I'm not as experienced in like what Ukraine policy, what Ukrainian government's like. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know, like if Ukraine is. I don't think Ukraine is doing well because
As yeah,
yeah, David.
as some of the
Mhm.
articles I read, it said that they're not doing well economically and stuff. And also there's a lot of corruption in the government. And if there's a lot of corruption in the government, that might result in people not wanting maybe wanting a different type of government. Who knows, right? So it's
I
kind of
mean,
interesting.
the president Viktor, the president of Ukraine in 2014, he was literally ousted from government because he was a Putin puppet. And right when that happened, Russia invaded Ukraine. I mean, it invaded Crimea, which is a part of Ukraine. So yeah, I mean, they've going through domestic turmoil for the last decade, and so politically, it's unstable. It's been unstable for a long time because it's a young country. It's only been a country for 30 years, 31 years. So a
And
lot of
also,
Mhm.
just real quick, kind of going back on that point, it's really interesting now how we all, Russia's infamous for hacking into, or doing cyber attacks on different countries. Like, there's reports that they've done it in the US in the 2016 election, right?
Not report, confirmed. They literally
Confirmed
attacked it.
report.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right.
Spreading
So,
misinformation. Yeah.
I mean, if they can do it to the US, a neighboring country, Ukraine, who doesn't have the same security established as the US, or doesn't have the same, technological capabilities as the US, they can easily like, hack into government websites, and they've been doing it actually, and kind of spread propaganda and like other types of misinformation that might cause the people to, form some different opinions on the whole situation. So I think that those cyber attacks and like that's kind of like the modern way of warfare nowadays. It's like you're fighting with information. You're not even fighting with like guns and bombs and stuff, right?
For sure. That's exactly what's happening, I think.
And
Let's
yeah.
you
Let's,
want to move
yeah.
on?
Yeah. We can move on, but really quickly, I just looked it up. Ukraine, 30%, 31% of the Ukrainian population is under the poverty rate. 31%.
That's
And
ridiculous, dude.
yeah. And according to the IMF in 2018, of all the countries in Europe, Ukraine had the lowest GDP per capita. So economically, it's doing really, really bad. Yeah, but let's move on.
Let's cover the NFT thing real quick, and then we can go into Joe Rogan. So okay, this is what I mean. I think this is extremely interesting. So as NFTs continue to build momentum and grow, we're starting to see. I've talked about this before. Real estate is starting to they're talking about real estate as an NFT or putting it on the Ethereum blockchain, and they've done this already in a Eastern European country, I believe in Lithuania, where they had an auction for a house. They had that auction produced as an NFT. So the people that are trying to buy the house are buying an NFT. But in order to do that, a business has to own the NFT for it to be a viable like purchase for like the human, right? For the person to buy it. And then the person will buy the business, which the business owns that NFT. So we just had on Thursday, the 10th, it happened in the United States, the second time it ever happened, where a house in Florida was auctioned starting at 650,000, was placed under an NFT, right? a business, I don't know what the, the corporation or whatever type it was, right? But there was a business that owned that NFT, and then somebody went ahead and purchased that business. So I just think it's crazy how, the future of NFTs is already proceeding, right? Like we're talking about how NFTs are going to be a platform for, maybe some type of social clicks or to get into places special, kind of like the black card, right? I believe it's not Capital One's black card, but what is it called? What financial service is it that provides a black card?
American Express, right?
American Express, Amex, sorry. So Amex black card. So companies are already creating their own black card and their own type of social hierarchy, and they're doing that, right? But not only that, like we could buy houses on a blockchain now, so it's even more secure than whatever escrow services we use right now. So it's just crazy how much more simplified the real estate game is becoming by using a complex system. I just thought that was extremely interesting. Another thing, in the meta realm, real quick, I thought this was pretty insane. I think it's a little too much for me at this point and at this stage. But McDonald's went ahead and bought virtual property in order to create McDonald's, right? So people can go ahead and or meta people, whatever you want to call them, their avatars, can go into McDonald's, purchase food, and then that food will be delivered in the real world.
Go ahead. I don't think it's that insane, because think about when you're like, this is a basic example, right? When you go on the McDonald's app and deliver, if you put that McDonald's app in like a VR glasses, you're kind of in a VR world. So if you're on the app, you're kind of in like a virtual world, if you think about it, even though you're interacting with your thumbs or whatever, you're on your phone, right? So I feel like it's just an extension of that. You're kind of just extending that into like, if you're in a virtual world, you can order something. That's kind of how I visualize it. I don't know if you kind of think about it the same way.
I think the difference is like, it's the thought of it. We're in the metaverse, right? Like we're already not in reality. And I mean, in time, I'm not saying right now, but people in time will be wanting to spend more of their time on there because their life in the metaverse will probably be better than their life in real life, right? And by going ahead and being able to walk into, McDonald's or, even a BJ's, who knows, maybe it'll be actual chains eventually, right? You go in there, it keeps your time from the real world still. And now you're allowing more time into this virtual space where you're not even really a human. You're just an avatar. You're a Wii character walking around doing things, and it's not real world stuff. You know my take on all of this stuff, right? So that's kind of how I'm perceiving it. It just keeps your time from the real world still. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right, yeah. What about you, Ibrahim? What do you think? First of all, what do you think about the real estate thing? Because I'm not that much into the whole NFT space. I understand NFTs, but I'm not that into it. And kind of wondering like how that would work in terms of like, like real life contracts, and maybe like purchasing big things like, possibly cars, vehicles or houses. Yeah.
So tell me if I'm wrong, but the house that you're referring to is just digital artwork of the house, right? It's not or are you saying that the actual, like, it was like a whole?
No, it's the actual property.
So it was an actual property. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So NFT is on the Ethereum blockchain, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Ethereum blockchain supports smart contracts. And so those smart contracts are being condensed into an NFT. So all the NFT is the non-fungible token, right? And so it's that smart contract that's acting as the NFT.
Oh, right. So, okay. I'm thinking about more like a picture NFT. Okay. So this is just, think of more like a smart contract, Ibrahim.
Yeah.
That's a better way to visualize it.
Yeah. So now, yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah. I mean, this is the
I think when we talked,
I think that's extremely efficient. That makes way more sense.
Yeah. We talked about this. We talked about this with the Lawrence Leslie, I remember. And when we talked about smart contracts, like buying houses, it's going to be super efficient. And even like, I think it's going to go with cars. It's going to go with even like later in the future, if we can make a sophisticated system, it might even work with, like lawyer contracts, or like, so paperwork in all different aspects of life. Like you go to DMV, it's just like you don't have to do any paperwork. It's literally all going to be on. on the
Well,
blockchain.
as of right now, I mean, so when I was in the brokerage space, like we had some conferences about this, right? And they're trying to figure out a way on how to be able to broker the smart contract situation. But that's the whole thing with blockchain, right? You're decentralizing things in general. And so by having a smart contract, it's kind of eliminating the way brokers deal with real estate. Right now, all you need is buyers. And, we're in a market where, everything is hot and everything is selling fast. So there's really no need for a broker. All you need is the seller, the bank that's going to go ahead and auction it off, and then the people that want to buy it. And then you go ahead and you go on this smart contract that already has all the information, right?
Yeah.
And it's even
All
more
legal.
secure than escrow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think you're right. And I think brokers, I don't know how soon it's gonna be, but that I think the reason you were having those meetings is they're trying to figure out, like, we can't be losing money, like we're gonna lose our jobs, right? Like we're gonna lose our jobs. But yeah, I think that is the future. And I think it's like a simple kind of way I kind of thought about it. Like when I you know how I bought the Tesla, right? The Model 3, right? So when I bought that car, right, I didn't have to deal with a single person. I didn't have to deal with a single person. I had to go to a car salesperson, to try to, reduce the price, talk to them, all that stuff. I didn't have to deal with a single person. It was all online. And that was without any blockchain, any smart contracts, anything. It was just an online system that Tesla developed, right? And I think if you can make like secure blockchain systems for a different type of contracts that are even better than just like regular, computer systems that kind of, go through all the legalities, that would be so efficient, and like it would just be better than dealing with some broker or anything like that. You could just go on Zillow and I want to buy this house, you bought it. Like there's no more,
Right.
And there's no closing costs if you do that, right? Like
exactly. Maybe the system, whoever develops that system, might take a percentage, right?
There'll probably still be closing costs because you have to still deal with mortgage lenders and people in that regard. And
but
there's
no additional closing costs. Like it definitely, I think it saves the buyer money, and so
it will definitely save the buyer money. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's just a better way of
whoever's
doing
paying
things.
it.
Yeah, it's a better way of
it's
doing.
more efficient. It's insane because commercial real estate agents, they're the second highest paid the second highest paid profession aside from like actors and those types of professionals. And so taking that that amount of income out from them, that's going to be really intense. And I'm really interested to see how the DR, because I don't think the DRE is going to allow it, the Department of Real Estate, just because how much money flows through them.
Right.
So I feel like there's going to be a sense, major backlash. And I think they're just going to try to like keep it out, dude. They're going to try not to allow it.
I think maybe it might not happen anytime soon, but eventually there's going to be a point where it's like, we're not dealing with, there's like a better way of doing this. Let's just do it. You know what I mean?
Right. But I think it's going to end up, they're going to try to centralize it, just like they're trying to centralize Bitcoin.
Right.
And that's the fear, because then it's the same thing, right? Just with a different system. So they're still centralizing, the escrow accounts as a smart contract, and they're just adding, jobs here and there that aren't really necessary in order to, keep money flowing through the system.
I think that's going to be insane. Because think about like, if there's a decentralized system of like buying houses and stuff, like there's no such thing as like, looking at your credit limit or like, looking at all these like prerequisites before selling a house. It's like, oh, if you got the money, like, I don't know how the loans would work, like that's
interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of like technicalities in it. So
maybe you know what they would probably do, dude? Before the auction, they'd probably pre-qualify you. They'd probably pre-qualify you, make sure you're able to pay however much the limit is, right? And if you're not, then you just won't be in the auction.
Right. Yeah, that can make sense too. Yeah, that's interesting.
And this is actually more capitalistic than what's currently happening, right? If you just have it auctioned off, then have random buyers. Because so the interesting thing is, right, when a buyer's going ahead and speaking to whichever agent it is, the agent still has a say, right? They still have a say of who gets to talk to the seller, who doesn't get to talk to the seller. And that's kind of a big aspect right now that can be eliminated through pre-qualifications and, the smart contract system.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a good note to end the conversation. I think we can probably just talk about Joe Rogan next time. I think all of us were just gonna say that, Joe Rogan
We
should not be
support Joe Rogan.
canceled, and
Of
that
course, yes, we stand with Joe Rogan. Joe is the boy.
even though he messed up and said, really, really, it's inexcusable what he said. We're not supporting that. We're just supporting.
In all fairness, though, real quick, in all fairness, he did say under context, right? So maybe it's not right to say it, but it was under context. The video that I saw. So maybe there was something I didn't see, but the one that I did see, it was under context, and he was literally quoting from someone.
Yeah, but so I mean, like no white person should be saying the word.
Well,
like,
okay. In my opinion, if it's
conversation-
quoting something, and it's not him saying, it's not him.
No, I mean, like
dogging on
look.
anybody.
1 second though. Hold up. So Joe Rogan himself said that he shouldn't, like, no white person should be saying the word. Like he himself acknowledged it. So like I think that's the most important part. And secondly, the Planet of the Apes quote that he said, I went back and looked at that thing, and Joe Rogan himself during that, when he was saying it, said it was racist of him to say that. And
yeah,
so
I did see that.
he acknowledged himself, but in the video, he said he wasn't trying to be racist, or but I mean, like,
I think, yeah.
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
Joe Rogan is not racist, and I think he's someone who has good intentions.
But when you have to
And-
say that, you're not racist, you have a problem. Like he said himself, I think his apology was
yeah,
right
but like
on,
everybody's made mistakes. in
Yeah,
their lives,
100%, 100.
Bro,
I'm not-
David Goggins is backing him. Israel Adesanya is backing him. You have all these people that are like genuine individuals backing him.
Yeah,
And it's like,
no,
how are you trying to
100%.
cancel somebody that's
Yeah.
genuinely not racist, but just said something, right?
I think
I think we've all said things we shouldn't have said. I think that's a fact, right?
No, but it's important. So I think it's important, and he himself acknowledges it's important to hold people accountable when they mess up. Like it's not to say you're done, but just tell them, hey, what you did was wrong, and you need to take full responsibility and apologize.
and that's
And
what
he did that, and that's
Right.
yeah, exactly. He did that, and he's gonna be more cognizant of that, and he's a better person than he was before for acknowledging that. And I give him credit. Whenever Joe messes up, for the most part, he always says, "I'm sorry. I will try to learn more."
He has
and he
integrity.
genuinely means it. Yeah, he's a genuine
Yeah.
guy. But what he said was like it's wrong. Like it's like if you look at historically, like no white person should be saying the word "end of story," in my opinion. And so yeah, so we support his podcast. I think he does a good job of giving it to us in an honest and genuine way. A lot of the vaccine stuff, obviously, like I don't know what he's doing there, to be honest with you. But again, we can disagree with him and still watch a show. That's the beauty of podcasts.
I think I don't like the whole idea. Like I understand Joe has made some mistakes, right? But I don't like the idea of like the bigger media attacking him. I think they're scared. I think that's why they're attacking him right now.
Oh
And
yeah,
because
yeah.
he's pulling in like 10x views than the like
Two-
CNN or like
200 million downloads every single month. 200
Yeah.
million.
that doesn't
Like,
even
I don't
come
under
close.
that is insane. Like that is
Yeah.
beyond
Insane.
200 million downloads. This guy gets so much
Dude, that's
more.
2/3 of the US's population.
But again, the downloads also. I mean, I think in terms of unique users, he probably gets 10 million to 20 million people who listen to him.
Oh, really?
The
Okay,
downloads,
gotcha.
no, that's not 200 million people listening to him. No.
Okay,
that
I
would
was
be
like, wow.
no. That would be like billions.
No,
of each
but
content. No, yeah.
even like 10 million people listening or 20 million people listening to him a month. I don't know what the viewership numbers are for like these big media companies like CNN, but they're not.
It's a
anywhere
million.
close right
It's maybe
now.
a million. Like
Yeah.
peak hours. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like nowhere close to what Joe is at right now. And what he does is so simple. There's no like I mean, there's good production, but it's not like some
Yeah,
have to
it's
get like these.
simple.
It's just simple. He's just talking with someone.
He's
And
got Jamie in there to
Well, that's
tell
the
him-
appeal, right? It's genuine.
Yeah,
it's authentic.
genuine. Yeah, exactly. And the media is scared of that, and they're trying to.
And
push
it's
their-
real people coming, right? It's real people talking, right? Not these phony journalists. It's people with genuine feedback, not people that are trying to create an agenda. I genuinely feel that way. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to make a joke. I feel
Yeah,
like-
no,
no,
I'd
I
agree
mean,
with
a
you.
lot of the establishment media, people have lost trust. They've lied to us so many times. The Iraq War, look at
they
that.
lie every day. They lie every day.
A lot of them do. A lot of them do.
Or stretch it, maybe not lie, but stretch the truth, right? That's I consider that lying.
I
A
think,
lot of them do, 100%.
Yeah.
But I do think there's still some good journalists left that do some.
I'm
great
sure.
work.
I
Yeah.
think the
yeah.
good journalists that are left write articles. I don't see any good journalists on TV.
Yeah.
on TV. There's some ones. Mehdi
There's
Hassan.
some. I
There's
guess,
some.
yeah.
Mehdi Hassan is MSNBC. Jake Tapper at CNN does an okay job. But yeah, I don't want. I mean, it's fine. I think Joe's fine. Joe's gonna be there. I give Spotify credit. They're not, even though obviously it's good that they removed those episodes where he uses the word, but I think the CEO of Spotify is taking a lot of criticism for not entirely canceling his show, and I do give him credit for standing by.
Standing up, yeah.
Who is getting criticism? Like who is this?
What the musical artist like Neil Young, who removed their entire, like, nobody listens to Neil. I don't listen.
Who
to
cares
Neil
about
Young.
Neil Young?
Yeah, I know. But
Okay, relax. Neil Young's actually historically very good, so
he's a legend,
but
right?
I don't. Yeah,
But he's
Yeah,
no
he's
Joe
a
Rogan.
legend, but
no.
yeah, but
Go
he
ahead.
removed his music from Spotify because he didn't like what Joe was saying about the vaccine. He told Spotify just like cancel all his episodes where he talks about the vaccine, or said to Spotify to remove his show, or basically said to choose between me and Joe Rogan, and they chose Joe Rogan. They're like, we're not going to remove her. So
Of
that's
course
what
they
Neil
chose
Young
Joe
said.
Rogan.
Of course, I mean more
Yeah.
profitable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
more profitable.
Yeah,
Yeah, business.
that's pretty hilarious though.
Yeah, a lot of people are trying to still like say, Joe is as a right winger, and he's not a right winger. He said he was going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Literally, he said he was going to vote for Bernie. So he's no way a right winger. He's just a guy who's open to different perspectives and wants to hear people out.
This is what I like about Joe Rogan and just podcasting in general. All these media like big media companies like CNN, Fox, what they do is like, oh, they just try to frame everyone with like this identity politics. Like, this guy's a right winger, so he likes these opinions. But Joe's like a freaking, he has like right wing opinions, and he smokes like DMT.
The juggernaut, man.
He smokes like DMT. He's like, you can't classify him as, oh, he's like a right or he's a leftist or something. He's like he's like what a regular U.S. American is. Like I think he represents the people.
Good way.
No?
Great way to say that. Yeah, I agree with you. He does. And that's the appeal of the show, because people can see a lot of themselves in him. And I think that's part of the reason why it's successful. Okay, I know a lot of us have to go, but good talk. And we will try our best to be as consistent as we can and do another episode next week. But until then, take care.